You ate the mushroom.
Maybe.
All right.
Hopefully not.
No, I'm good.
I get busted leaving here.
I'm good.
Let's do this.
Purple rain. Purple rain. Hey, Wade Carter Weather brought to you by the great folks at Deerland Feed. For everything you need, there's Deerland Feed.
And all your ag needs, pet needs, garden supplies, lawn care, fertilizer. They've got it all.
So it's good news or bad news, depending on how you choose to see the glass. 55 degrees and cloudy. Going to be cloudy all day. The high of 73. And then overnight, it's going to begin to rain. It's going to rain, 90% chance of rain tomorrow. And these clouds are going to fall out.
Yeah, at least we're not in Canada where it's snowing.
Right. That's true. Astros played yesterday, got smoked
Again?
Played in Colorado, and game time temperature was 35 degrees. There were snow flurries.
Yeah.
And it's just not. I mean,
you shouldn't have to play in that.
Urquidy is like, that's unfair punishment. I mean, kids from Latin America.
Exactly.
Here comes the snow flurries.
Only time he saw watching Scarface.
Exactly. Say hello, my little friend, the slider. Hey, let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
So Bill Posey just had our buddy Dale Zook on. Let's have Dale come over, give us like a propaganda minute, and we'll visit with Dale for a second. Dale's a great guy running for school board. I've known Dale a long time. I know Dale through business. I recommend Dale for anything that I don't do. I would say, yep, talk to my friend Dale Zook with no hesitation. If the schools turned around tomorrow, if all of a sudden all the buildings were paid for, and test scores were through the roof, people would say, well, it's in spite of those clowns on the school board. Nobody would ever, there's no accolade. There is no love for the school board. So
that's true.
Dale, I don't know why you're doing it, but I know that you're convicted. And
no, they're not convicted.
No, I know you. There you go. You're convinced that you can help, and I'm excited to have
you. Have conviction. I think is what he was trying to say.
He's an Aggie. You have to keep it really simple.
We had Buster yesterday. 200 plus great Aggies were there.
That's really nice.
Recognized with almost a single voice with Mr. Ronnie McCoy, true Aggie, miss him greatly.
Absolutely, fine gentleman, and already missed in town. That's we're going to talk. Be excited to visit with him. Tell us anything. So school bond, for or against, and why?
Against this bond.
Okay.
We definitely need a bond. If it doesn't pass, which I don't know if it's going to pass. There's a lot of negative waves going around. It's going to have to come back real quick in November. Probably it'll be the date it has to come back. But while we have some significant money we can move around within what our collections are, we don't have $40 million.
So let's put this back in your lab. I've time to get into it. There's different divisions in M&O and INS, and so we're going to take money out of this. We're going to take a tax decrease in the rate at this place and increase it over here for a net zero new taxes to you, and that's going to free up money to pay our teachers more and
additional money for
maintenance. So
without a tax increase.
So while we all think that's a great idea, nobody could really be against that. The onus now falls back into y'all's lap to get a consensus before the school board, because the school board, through multiple school board members, has told me this new idea of running the schools with the community's help. One of our rules is they bring us consensus ideas. If there's not a consensus on the task force, then we're going to table it. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think y'all need to get together and work out what you want to do to where everybody goes, that makes sense to me. Because what you're telling me makes sense to me. Maybe you need smarter people on your task force.
There's only one consensus that matters. That's election day. The voters get to say yes. The voters get to say no. If the voters say yes, sir, it's a great idea for this bond. If the voters say no,
back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board, and there is no consensus except for what the voters say.
Well, if I felt comfortable, I haven't made any comment on the air about my personal feelings about the bond, because I was so adamant last time and I was wrong. I mean, we got beat. So I'm looking at it, and what I'm willing to say is, if there's a better option out there that doesn't raise our taxes on and putting that bond on the agenda in November, I'm totally for that.
And I am convinced that is a possibility, Brent.
Okay.
It is a good possibility because our taxpayers, we can't afford any more taxes. We're being taxed out. Some of us are still trying to figure
How do the new valuations fall into your plan?
The way they would fall in is that we cannot raise one more nickel more than we did last year.
So we need an effective tax rate.
Tax rate.
Right.
And it's something the school board fought against Mr. I won't say his name. He said we need to reduce it 1 penny, and 6 of the members said no, we need to keep more money in the schools. They fought for that 1 penny. He wanted to reduce it, and he had a great option. But we have some school board members that think that taxpayers are a bottomless pit of money, period.
No, and I remember you saying, just candidly,
HR Mallory says it was 4 meetings to discuss and bring to the board, needed more time and discussion because it's a complicated process to understand.
fair enough. And then we should do that between now and November. And I remember you telling me that if you're for this bond and you're okay with your taxes going up, then that's fine. But you need to also be ready for an additional tax increase because we're going to have to pay our teachers.
We have to pay our teachers. We'll get additional teachers to replace the ones that are leaving.
There you go. So now, thank you. So that's Dale Zook that came in. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have City Manager Jesus Garza is going to be in studio. We're excited to have him. And Dale, thank you, and thank you for your willingness to get into the arena. We appreciate that. Allen's Wrecker Service, always in the arena. You got a problem on the side of the road, you got a big rig that won't go, you got a Yugo that needs to get to Atzenhofer. You call 578-6300.
Saw a couple of the trucks yesterday in my travels.
Allen's Wrecker Service. They're staged around town. You see them with a driver who chooses to eat his lunch in his cab because if there's an accident, yesterday, corner of like Navarro and Mockingbird, there was a flatbed truck sitting there because they know there's going to be an issue at some point.
They know the hot spots.
And they're waiting to help people. 578-6300. The VCS companies, Rocket Oilfield Services, and the only locally owned and authorized AT&T retailer, all part of the Hartman communication empire right there on Kerr Boulevard.
Just inside the loop on
off Main. That's right. Chesnick Furniture Company.
101 years, Chesnick Furniture Company has been selling Victorians furniture and accoutrement. Can't forget that.
Chesnick and Love make your house a home, and you simply just do better at yourself. And said, I'm on my way to Veracruz to have the caldo today. So caldo Wednesday, always a success. But the next day is the day for the drowning enchilada, the taco salad, the compuestas. They've got it all. Get over to Veracruz today.
Roll call because Facebook's a little
Flighty.
it's not working so well on the laptop. But David Glass, good morning to you. Sherry and Ron Koshin are in. Kendra Douglas checking in. HR Mallory, good morning to you, sir. Justin Glass, Chris Conrad, Trey Molina, Matt Boucher is in. Daniel White, good morning. Kathleen Leininger, Lisa Poole, Matthew Anders, Amanda Smith King, Diane Tippett, Robin Moore Knipling, Heather Monroe, good morning. Catherine Imes.
MUNRO. Matt Boucher would tell you that today is a good day to get out there and fertilize that front yard. It's after April 15th. And
a little bit of rain in the forecast.
It's going to rain.
Yeah. Karen Webb, good morning. Justin Glass, Scott Tomko.
Hi, Scotty.
Let's see who else. I think that
Scott,
Gloria Cardone is in. Good morning, Bob Constantine.
Scott, I threw 200 pitches of a BP last night, and my right elbow is about to fall off.
Bobcat Watley, Patrick Strauss, Lisa Poole. Scott Tomko says the Biden administration is not finished with our federal taxes yet, so you can add all that into the bucket of taxes as well.
Well, but Joe Biden's going to cancel July 4th. How ignorant is this president? I'm not saying he's stupid. We've observed that. I'm not saying he's got dementia. We've observed that. I'm saying he's ignorant. Joe Biden is saying, well, we were going to let people get together
Yeah.
in small groups, but it doesn't look, if we don't get more vaccinated, are you kidding me, Joe? We've been getting together in big groups for the last 5 months.
In fact, the Indianapolis 500 is going to run at the end of May, and they're expecting 135,000 people there.
I mean, I just don't know what this president is thinking. There's no crisis at our border, and boy, soon, folks, we'll be able to have some small groups.
But he's willing to weigh in on a shooting yesterday or on Tuesday in Columbus and refer to it as more police brutality.
He's an idiot, a complete buffoon with the launch codes.
And the Micaiah Bryant shooting is tragic.
It's tragic that a 15-year-old child was so abandoned by so many people who she should have been able to depend on, that she chose to pull a knife on what appears to be one of her foster sisters. People are saying, people show up with a knife. That's a knife fight. When one person has a knife and they're wielding it violently at another person, that's attempted murder. Police officer has to do what he has to do. It does.
And here's the catch-22 here in this situation. Yeah, then they're always right then. Don't show up or doesn't do what he did.
You got a dead kid.
You're going to have a dead body one way or the other, the way this situation was playing out.
Right.
Most likely. You're wielding a pretty good knife.
The knife is
here.
Oh, yeah.
At least the screenshot I saw. And, there's only one way to go when you got the knife back here. Kind of like throwing a pitch or a ball, right? Once you get it here, it's going forward.
Very quickly, Rafael De La Garza did clarify, self-appointed mayor and fire marshal of Tortilla Flats.
There you go. Yeah.
He did clarify. Jesus Garza made a note of that. There appears to be a review later of Ricky's declaration that he is the mayor and fire marshal. I don't know if Jesus is going to appreciate a little fiefdom in the midst, like an unincorporated. It's like a Chaz. It's like a chop.
It's like Mowerson, Texas.
Tortilla Flats is like a little chop. Jesus is looking at me. I don't think he knows where Tortilla Flats is.
Oh, trust me, I know about the mayor.
He knows about the mayor of Tortilla Flats.
But to me, the last person that failed young Miss Bryant wasn't the police officer. It was everybody along the way, including the foster siblings that apparently were tormenting her to the point where she felt she needed a knife to go after one of them.
Absolutely. These things often, there's more to the story, just like Derek Shaw
and there's still
George Floyd.
And there's still more to the story. Again, and you brought up a good point this morning before we got on air about, all the 9-minute and 20-second segments of George Floyd's life that led to where he did, and people didn't do anything to keep him on a path from getting there.
Right.
And it's similar in this situation. How many people failed this girl that she felt the only way to get her situation resolved was to go after somebody with a knife?
It is interesting to me. Does no one see the irony of George Floyd's support system, his family being the key people that failed him through his life? God bless him. Let's give him $27 million from the taxpayers of Minneapolis.
And you don't think that decision?
Like, I hit a pothole on Airline a couple of weeks back. You think maybe the city of Victoria might just send me a couple of milli? Just not 27. Wow. I thought we were friends. He just gave me the glare of, really? You're going to go there? That was, by the way, he learned that. He didn't learn that in Kingsville. He didn't learn that, folks. He learned that in San Antonio because maybe at one point when he was really gung-ho and even younger and aspiring, some old guy in the city bureaucracy gave him that glare. He remembered that glare, and he is able to pull it out at a moment's
notice.
And
now you'll never forget it. HR Mallory says, props to the admin of the Columbus, Ohio PD for getting the body cam video released in about 5 hours so they can get some real facts out there, because the narrative was being spun.
Trying to avoid riots.
The media was being spun the narrative was already being spun by the media. It was cop shoots black teenager. That was
I don't know if the cop was white or black.
That was the headlines. Those were the headlines until the body cam footage came out, and you could clearly see a knife, and you could clearly see that young Miss Bryant was the aggressor at that moment.
Yeah, and it's awfully naive to think of a 15-year-old anymore as a child. I mean, they may think as a child, but these are some of these folks are, they're strong.
Those aren't actions of a child.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
and if you watch the video, she shoves somebody down on the way to go after the girl in the pink or the young lady in the pink.
Let's take our second break. That way we're uninterrupted with the city manager, and he can tell us everything he wants to share. Atzenhofer dealership since 1926. It's quite simple, just simply Victoria's dealership. Whether you need a brand new Chevy, Mazda, Mitsubishi, or Cadillac, Atzenhofer is your place. Atzenhofer.com. You can shop in the convenience, privacy, and safety of the Joe Biden room.
I've picked my pre-owned vehicle of the week.
It's a Mazda.
It's a Mazda CX-3 Touring Edition. Nice one.
It's red.
It's red.
How much was it?
It's a hatchback.
Under 20 grand.
Yeah, it's a 2019, so it's a late model, low miles. Be a good first vehicle for a child. Be a good run around town vehicle for somebody.
Go by there and tell them that Wayne Carter sent you. White Trash Services 550-1826.
BJ's still in Facebook purgatory, I believe.
Yes. She got in trouble. She mentioned something
mentioned
about
her
White
company
Trash Services
on our show.
Facebook thought that she was saying something about white trash, something defamatory, and they put her in purgatory. So you got that going on, but they are not. They're out running the roads all over the 7-county area, parts of Lavernia, southern Lake Tahoe. 550-1826. Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull. JP's got a lot of things going on. I'm excited about his role in our city and the things that he's doing. And he can do data encryption and all types of website analytics.
Clean up your dark web presence if you have one.
Yeah, it does blow my mind that he went into a website for a friend and said, yeah, there's 100 hacks going on here right now. 100, literally. Crazy. The law offices of Stephen Kidder. You may not think you need an attorney, but you want to adopt a child, you need to dissolve a business relationship.
I thought you were referring to Steve Kidder when you said adopt a child.
Still, would you like to adopt Steve Kidder? You get free legal advice as long as you pay his bills. Steve Kidder, the law offices of. He is a fine gentleman and a very, very accomplished lawyer. All types of civil and criminal law. He can help you and your family. And then Complete. I had a smoothie yesterday, banana strawberry. It was fantastic. A little whey protein, minimal calories, no carbs, no added sugar. You can custom make whatever you want. I guarantee you, Jesus Scars has been a Complete, either over here at the Health Bar, right here on Red River, or up by Buffalo Wild Wings, where he said, Do I want some flats? Do I want some drummies, or do I want a smoothie? And he made the choice to go to a smoothie. Smart guy.
Very smart. The Health Bar's got great food.
We're excited to get him in. I'm going to go turn the camera. He looked sharp this morning, and I'm going to turn the video so that
James Kurth is in this morning.
All right, hang on.
Hope you're feeling better, James.
After your stroke,
because there were rumors around that you had a stroke, and we know that's not the case, but somehow those rumors were flying around yesterday. Imagine that. So, Peter McNally, good morning to you. Tracy Price is in. Glenn and Janice Ullman are watching, so appreciate that.
It's never Greg Ullman. No. It's Glenn and Janice
Ullman.
Yeah, we just we're so close all the time.
Patsy Blue. I wonder if they're related to the great NHLer Norm Ullman.
Probably not. Good morning, sir. You have your public there. Buenos dias to you too. Muy bien. We're good. I'm good. Thank you. Today's episode brought to you totally in Spanish, Magic 95.9. How are you? You're good?
Well, thank you.
Good. You look fantastic. Everything's good?
Yeah, can't complain. City's trucking along. Fatherhood is right around the corner.
Yes, sir. Can you give us an update? I mean, I know it's very personal. I'm just saying, if there's an update, we'd love to have it.
No, I mean, I think we're at a point where we feel comfortable talking about it publicly. The next month and a half.
To the point where it's a little obvious when you're in public now, right?
So here's the deal.
To the point where it's a little obvious when you're in public now, right?
So here's the deal. I don't know. We have a name picked out? Jesus 2.0?
No, Michael Anthony.
Beautiful.
So you know it's a boy.
Yeah.
What if
we don't know what it is yet.
What if you're surprised? You got another name just in case?
Michelle.
I'll just walk out.
Right. You promised me a boy.
Michelle Antoinette.
Right.
Yeah, we're excited.
I'm excited for you.
Busy times right now, getting ready for that, obviously. And then just, working on the budget for the city. Normally the summertime is budget season for us. And so obviously I'm going to take a little bit of time off after Michael comes. And so trying to wrap up as much as we can related to the budget to get ready for our budget workshops at the end of June. Council.
Well, you get here and so much of the city's budget is a moving target, and there's things that we know and things we don't know. But you think, Ash, he gets here and he has to go through, we're coming off of Harvey. He has to go through COVID. He has to go through the biggest ice storm, flooding, right? And then Raleigh passes. And so you've had obstacle, hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And yet,
Some would say you're the jinx.
no, the city seems to be rolling along though. And
Thanks for the support.
right, and that's not at all where I was
No,
going.
well, no,
And
me
it's
either,
not
but
in
I'm
his
just saying.
contract that we do that. No, I didn't know. Now you've got a legislative session heating up, and I just
How's that? That was
Yeah.
that was kind of leads into the question I was going to ask, because this is a legislative session,
Right.
and you talked about the budget. What are the things that are happening in Austin that will impact?
So great question. And so for context, for the listeners, this has been an ongoing, conversation, for the last 2, 3, 4 legislative sessions. Because there has been conversations at the state level about, property tax and limiting property tax revenue and things of that sort. And so at the last legislative session, the legislation passed SB2, which limits our ability to increase our property tax revenue. And I use those words intentionally as opposed to tax rate because it's centered around revenue, right? And so, magically our tax base, increases, 8-10% because we've got, huge progress or whatever the case may be. We still can't increase our property tax dollars by more than 3.5% every year.
Even if it's new tax people, if it's a new tax base or new members of the tax base, not existing tax base, right?
From my understanding this whole time, it's all inclusive of it. And it's intended to kind of help, sort of obviously keep some of that down. Now there are some exceptions in there that allow you to do more than 3.5% every year, but it used to be 8.5%. The rollback rate used to be 8.5%, and so or 8%, and so that happened. The legislative session 2 years ago. Some of the things that are going on now. So, for example, there's a bill related to our franchise fees that we charge our solid waste companies, and so currently we charge 15%, or we receive 15% of revenues from them. The bill would lower that to 2%. That to us would result in about a $1.8 million decrease in our general fund.
Keep going, you're good.
Okay. Did I break it?
No, but we're going right back.
Okay. So that's a big deal, right? Because if all of a sudden overnight we lose $1.8 million in our general fund, able to make up in any other.
thank you, Zach.
In any other method. And so we're keeping our eye on that. There's also a potential change that might help us on the positive, which is more related to sales tax. And so you may have heard that the comptroller of the state made a decision to change the way that sales tax is collected. Currently, communities that have warehouses or distribution centers or just sites like that, like Amazon, for example, those are the entities that collect sales tax, not where you order it. And so if you order something on Amazon right now, or any other website for that matter, that sales tax doesn't come to us.
Right.
It goes to wherever that order gets filled.
Yeah.
And so naturally we lose out on money by that being the case. And so the new rule that would go into effect would in essence change that so that the destination community is the one that receives the sales tax for those online orders. And so that's a positive for us.
So okay, and I agree with that. Except that still doesn't do anything for local vendors. I'm not saying it should necessarily. I'm not saying it should necessarily. It solves one of the city's problems, is cash flow. But it just kind of eases the conscience. Well, I can go buy it on Amazon instead of buying it at, say, XYZ company, and the city's still gonna get the same money either way. So what do they care? It's almost like And it's a totally separate issue. I'm just
Yeah,
saying it's not like it's a panacea. It kind of,
I think the hope is different, right? So the hope actually is that, because some communities have different sales tax
it's on now.
rates.
Yes, sir.
And so there is the chance that, if you order something online, you're paying a lower sales tax than if you were buying it, at a store here locally. Because that sales tax, if you order something online, you're paying a lower sales tax than if you were buying it, at a store here locally. Because that sales tax.
Sure.
That by changing it, it would actually allow for more comparable apples to apples with local brick and mortar stores, because everybody would be following the same sales tax.
Makes sense. You had a whole list. You had a list of several issues that apply to Victoria. What else is happening? What are you doing, Ash?
Which is that there is a federal Davis-Bacon type of act that requires that any government work at the federal level, for example, be what they call prevailing wage. And so they have a formula that determines what the prevailing wage is, locally, if you will. Wage is not the right word that they use. But in any case, they have a formula that determines what is the wage for the area. And so what this does is that it attempts to make it more localized, because the challenge, for example, Jeff Bachnight, who has been a council member that's been very involved with this process for us, he obviously has a HVAC related company.
Right.
So he often deals with projects where, the going rate for our community is X. So he has a project, at this site where he's paying everybody X amount. For government funded projects, you have to pay this prevailing rate that comes through the feds and is determined by them. But if there's a different way to determine what that localized rate is, we would in essence pay less for public works projects,
Right.
which would save the taxpayer dollars. Now, obviously, what some would argue the con is there is that the laborer, is receiving less income, right? That hourly rate might go down with this prevailing.
Well, I guess the thought might be, if I'm just using round figures, you've got a concrete guy that's used to making $20 an hour in Houston, and down here maybe that same concrete guy only makes $15 an hour. That guy in Houston is going to be less inclined, or his people are going to be less inclined to come down here and work for $15 an hour. So that's going to help the job stay local. Is that the logic?
I hadn't thought about it in that way, but I guess it could theoretically, work that way, I suppose.
But wouldn't the bid project or bid process take care of that? If you think the bid for that project is just out of scope, wouldn't you just say that, we need this
but there are
redone?
laws that require that, subcontractors get paid a certain amount. And so that's really what the issue is. Right?
Okay.
That there's already existing laws that require that public works projects pay a certain amount. And so really what this bill is simply trying to do is to get a more accurate prevailing wage rate for the specific area, to hopefully save taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
But again, naturally, the con to that is that the labor hourly rate goes down. And so, for example, that's some of the conversation that you're hearing at the legislature, like when they heard this bill in committee, for example. You have labor unions, for example, that are against this bill, because it would decrease,
union dues.
But of course, we're coming from it, and Raleigh was coming from it from the perspective of long term, it can help save taxpayer dollars, if you don't have to,
if we don't have to pay, Dallas wages in Victoria.
Pay, what that prevailing rate is.
Understandable. Real quick, there's some Facebook issues going on. The live feed may have ended on your end.
We're good here.
It is still going. I'm monitoring here, so we're good. So please don't.
I actually paid JP to do that.
Right. I want to change gears on you and not so much put you on the spot, but ask you one that kind of makes you think on the fly here a little bit. If you've got a bucket of money that the taxpayers are, whether they vote to do it or whether through normal increases in taxes that happen 3.5%, whatever. Let's say you've got a bucket of 200 million bucks and you are the czar. Do you give 158 million of those dollars to
200 million, I would just leave.
Right.
I would
And
just-
there
I would
you have
just-
it.
I would
Buy your own island and
yeah,
you'd be gone.
I would quit. I would take off.
See, all he's doing there, folks, is buying time to contemplate what I'm asking him. No, I'm saying that,
What I'm doing is, in essence, conveying without saying it, that your question doesn't make sense.
okay. So here's what I'm saying. I would have to assume that you view education as important. You view a positive view of our education as important. It's good for economic development.
Absolutely.
All ships rise on an incoming tide. And I would have to assume that in some form, without getting into your personal politics, that you're arguably for this school bond. In some form, whether it's this exact bond or not, you're for funding these schools. I'm saying that the taxpayers in Victoria only have a capacity. Like there's no more blood in the turnip, man. 200 million is all we've got. Are you content to give 158 of those millions to VISD? I mean, Quentin Shepard standing beside you, and are we for that?
I think that's a great question.
Now it's a good question. See, it's a good question
Yeah,
now.
because now I'm back on Facebook. It's hard to answer because we have so many entities that assess a property tax, right? I mean, we have the
Yes,
board,
sir.
we've got Victoria College, the city, the county, the school district. And so if we were to have a holistic conversation about, if you had 200 million.
Yeah, if that was it, how would you
if
divvy
that
it
was
up?
it,
It's a
right?
hypothetical.
At that point, it's a much broader conversation than just, the city and the school district. I mean, I would argue that regardless of which entity would be investing the money, it makes sense to invest in something that's going to give you a return in daily life.
Yes, sir.
There are plenty of projects that, every public entity, invest money in that the public, is out of sight, out of mind, don't think about, but we internally, recognize that they're important, right? I mean, if we have a whole conversation about, the landfill, right? But I guarantee you never hear people talking about the landfill.
Correct.
While eating sopa.
Veracruz. But see, I could give you 158 million.
And in my particular case, it would be very, if I literally, as the city manager, had $200 million, I mean, we have plenty of needs at the city level.
Yep, preach
And
it.
it would be very difficult to give that up, right? Ranging from streets to drainage.
The park, monetizing the park. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
I mean, even our own facilities, right? I mean, I know there's been obviously a lot of conversation about school facilities because of the bond. But the reality is, we have old facilities too. I mean, my police department building is inadequate for our police department.
Correct.
For example, and so we know it's not going to be, cheap to build a legitimate public safety facility that everybody can feel proud of, that can help us with recruitment, with retention, right? And so, I mean, I've got my own selfish needs that if I had 200 million, I would address what my personal selfish primary.
Yeah, because your priority would be to
Yes,
represent
sir.
the city's needs. Absolutely.
Now, do I think that investing 150?
Priority would be to
Yes,
represent
sir.
the city's needs. Absolutely.
Now, do I think that investing $156 million into schools, will yield a return? Absolutely.
Yes, sir. By the way, hats off to you. I think that sometimes we don't necessarily give a lot of credit where credit is due, not intentionally, but it just happens. If you were to be as the athletic director and a police chief was to be viewed as a head coach, you absolutely, I think, have the right man in place. We really, really appreciate Chief Arredondo and think that he is the guy to build upon the tradition we have in Victoria and take Victoria's PD to. And sometimes, hey, guess what? You get that new big time coach, you got to build a new stadium. I mean, it's not just all about show. It's about the way the police department functions now is different than it was 50 years ago when that building was built.
Well, and it's much larger, right? I mean, our police department now is much larger than it was 20 years ago, and it's going to be much larger in 20 years from now. And so we need to have the facilities for
Absolutely.
that. And I think one of the things that I think sometimes gets lost, in the conversation about, needs, taxes, revenue, et cetera, is the fact that, money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes, sir.
At the local level, we can't print money, right? And so I think one of the issues, and I've had this conversation with several folks, is that all people hear about is the feds, right? And so they see how the feds, all of a sudden come out with a 2 point feds, right? And so they see how the feds, all of a sudden come out with a 2.9 trillion, stimulus package, and they do so much things without any thought to revenues, without any thought to impact on operational debt. And so I think to a certain extent, the community has been conditioned to almost expect and think that government can just do that. If you have needs, well, just do it. Just print money, right? Because they see the federal government issue all this money out, and it impacts them very minimally.
Well, and they don't understand the mechanics behind that money that's getting printed either.
While at the same time,
or quite frankly, don't care, right?
Well, true. Yeah. There's apathy
because
they're getting their $1,400 stimulus check or a user fee. And I'm probably more in favor of that than I am just, let's tax everybody. Got some opportunity for Victoria in some ways, and some explanation I think is needed in others.
if you're feeling taxed to death, before you kick it, reach out to Dana Moore de la Garza, 652-9157. At 652-9157, Dana will come out, sit with you and your family, and very thoughtfully help you craft a plan for your final days. You can purchase a lot.
Even if your final days are 40 or 50 years away,
No doubt.
you can take care of all of that now. Absolutely.
Yep. Everything from where done to how you want your funeral to be. If you want to be cremated, you want to put a casket, whatever you want to do. Dana Moore de la Garza can have that big old house at 5.5%, save you about 3 points on that. Lower your rate, lower your payment, and shorten your repayment
Or
time.
get into your new home or your dream home. She can help you with all of that, conventional financing, FHA, VA loans, even reverse mortgages if that's the situation you're looking into. So
When you do that, you might as well reach out to Went Services and get you a whole house generator. Why would you not? Go into storm season knowing that you've got electricity in the event of an outage. And then, of course, if it's a used home and you say, man, I hate that unsightly oil on the garage floor, reach out to USA Concrete Coatings. They'll come out, steam clean all that, fill in the cracks, and put down a tough polyurethane finish 4 times tougher than epoxy.
578 Homes, the number to call to reach Charlie Garcia and his gang, and they'll come out and do a great job, transform your drab slab into something phenomenal.
Wow.
I need that.
Yeah, make that garage floor look sharp.
I actually bought some epoxy at Lowe's.
Did you try that yourself, sir?
Sold it on it.
Chip.
I'm pulling that Brent Carter and converting my garage into a gym.
Oh, are you
go.
really?
Nice.
Good, then we'll come
Nice.
over to your place. So here's COVID relief money. What's the discussion surrounding the COVID relief money the city's going to get? What are the priorities for that?
Great question. So we are slated to receive $15 million.
Water pads for the kids.
Some of the guidance that came from it was somewhat vague, but centered around it can be utilized for loss of revenue to help make us whole, right? Because naturally, we saw a decrease in sales tax revenue and other revenues, hotel fees, all sorts of things. You can utilize it naturally for the public health, response. But the health department's with the county, right? Not necessarily us, and so it's unclear if that's applicable to our EMS department. Like it's kind of vague. You can utilize it for water and sewer infrastructure. So nothing to do with COVID directly, but you can utilize it for water and sewer infrastructure. You can utilize it for broadband. Obviously, that was a big topic of conversation.
Huge topic of conversation for
Yes,
people
sir.
working from home, students.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can.
And I would argue that's
you
an
can
infrastructure
utilize it-
issue.
Yeah, you can utilize it to help support households, businesses, nonprofits. And very specifically called out being able to utilize it for entities. I have a company that's already in the works that has been Sparklight. They've been in the works, formerly Cable One. And so they're slowly but surely, entering the market and kind of doing their own thing. But what you're beginning to see is communities be more involved with some of that, what is referred to as the middle mile infrastructure, because it can be very expensive for
Me in a heartbeat. And people, we've talked about on this particular school bus. Going to see, yes, sir. But most Victorians won't ever see that. But you won't see the new AC unit on the roof and go, I'm proud of that. That's my tax dollars at work. You just don't. It's It's like when you change the oil in a car, it's got to be done.
Until you're the parent sitting there, that's elementary school assembly, sweating in that cafeteria because the AC isn't keeping.
No value to you, the college, like you said, in the university, and you go on down through all these entities, and they're all worthy, but there's only so much blood in the turnip. And trying to get, you guys do a good job of not competing with each other. It's not like you're saying, well, we need that money at the city. The schools don't need that. But it is very scary to the taxpayer. So that was just more of a statement. Shifting gears, shaping up, and what the city is doing now or planning to do to roll in.
You know, it's something the city has been involved with, you know, for many years now, and it was obviously a priority for Raleigh and a priority for, you know, myself and the team at the city, because to your point on taxes, right? I mean, if the community isn't growing, if our tax base isn't growing, it's growing trees, and so any conversation about, you know, money to do projects leans on the existing resident, the existing taxpayer, right? But if we're growing, then you add the new.
And we haven't grown as a city the way.
And the whole purpose of the fuel tax at the state level was to help, you know, fund road projects. And so rather than the state saying, you know, we're going to actually update the fuel tax because it hasn't been updated in 30 years, fuel tax in your community to benefit your street projects. And so the bill would allow the city the opportunity to have an election to add 1 cent to every gallon of fuel that gets bought in our community, that we can then in turn, you know, utilize it for street projects. And so raise money, if you will, for streets from people that don't even live here, right?
Right.
Because,
Yeah, but they drive through here.
Correct. They
Yeah.
drive through here, pump gas here. I mean, think about all the truckers and just everybody that just is passing by our community that, you know, may or may not be leaving any money in town. If there was an added cent to each gallon, that'd be another opportunity to.
You thinking about an electric car? Electric car be good for you?
That might be-
You know, if you commute from your home to downtown?
I don't think so.
Not yet.